Welcome to my Hebrew channel, Mila Braika, and I'm looking at Ruth 2, verse 2. Here, this is the start. It's basically sort of the introductory part of the second chapter. In the first chapter, Ruth 2, verse 1, we have an introduction as who is who, and basically to introduce the person and the character of Boaz. And now, most of Ruth 2, verse 2 is a petition on the part of Ruth to go off to the field and to work. So establishing a person and her willingness to serve. So and beautiful passage, some very words with a lot of meaning in them. And let's look to it and have an English Bible on hand. I'm just going to work with the Hebrew, and so have a good standard Bible sitting beside you. I'd also invite you to open your phone app or your computer app to follow it along as well. It adds to what's happening here. And you can hit the pause button on the video anytime just to look things up. Go ahead and do that. This has been written as, or is produced as a study, so use it as a study. It's incidentally, I produced them, and then a week or two later, I'll look at it again. It's interesting. I still learn from my own videos. So let's get into the study. And again, it's an ancient manuscript, and 2 verse 1 ends over here, Shemo Boaz, and the name of him was Boaz. So Boaz is introduced to the narrative, and we're going to see him about 3 or 4 verses down. But here at the start, this is a dialogue on the part of Ruth speaking to Naomi, and then the last few words of this verse here are the response that Naomi gives. So, but we start with Ruth right here, and each one has something to say here. Tomer, and you got Tomer for Ruth. You have Tomer, and you have Tomer, and also for Naomi. Naomi is not mentioned here, but the context lets us know who that is. Tomer Ruth. Incidentally, this most usually see right here. Usually, Tomer is Milel accenting here. They pushed it off to Milrat, the accenting towards the end. In fact, I was reading this and I read these things through numerous times just to see what they sound like. Well, Tomerut and these two reshes run together. Okay, Tomerut, and that maybe explains a little why the accenting was pushed towards the end here. Okay, Tomerut, and then Ruth said. Okay, Ruth said. There's a lovely Raphe over here. This Raphe is on top of the Aleph here. So, and this Raphe is on top of the Tau. And if you have a Tau, you will not have a Dagish if you have a Raphe on it. And she is Hamobiah, the Moabite. Our passage, our entire book, never lets us forget her nationality. She's always the Moabite, all the way through. So Hamobiah, it's mentioned again. Okay, this is makes the story interesting because the national tendency of people is just to ignore foreigners or immigrants and so. But no, this whole matter of the visitor or the foreigner comes front and center in our story, and that's an important factor in what's happening here. Hamobiah, the Moabite. So in fact, there's a direct article on it for that Moabite. So the Moabite, Moabite woman, feminine. Moabiyah. To Naomi. Okay, she's speaking to Naomi here, and Naomi. So at this point, there's really an accenting to notice that there's a little old Rebia here. But then here's the dialogue, the direct dialogue begins here. And it's in the first person. Elaka na. Elacha na. I have to keep the cuffs soft. Ruth here is reusing one of the verbs from the first chapter, that is Ruth 1 verse 16, where you walk, I will walk. And it's also the same prefix, the aleph here that you see in Ruth 1:16. I will walk. What that does, it just brings it personal. And here, this is a little bit different from the first chapter, in that we have a hortatory form of this verb here. I would like to walk, please. Okay, let me walk. Okay, na is the petition particle, and we see it on things like Hosanna, that's Aramaic actually. Hosiana, we give you the Hebrew there. And mana, what is this, please? And so, yes, it is a very common particle that's used for petition. And in English, we would use the word please let this happen, or please let me walk. Okay? Elaka, elacha, na. Accenting pops right to the end here. There's a makef right here, so which helps connect this up and brings the accenting from this word over to this one here. Na, please. Shade. Shade. There's a direct article to the field. Okay, let me walk to the field. It's interesting in that it isn't just kind of out in the open as some field. No, it's the field. Definite article. So something in mind, be it part of the literature, part of the thinking of Ruth and Naomi, but it's a specific field. Okay, the field. Let me go to the field. What? So this does open up a bit of a question at this point. What field? Well, we'll get to the answer of that one pretty soon. So, na hashade, to the field. Va alachata. Allah. Oops, I'm missing the. That looks like a schwab. It's actually part of a hatev kamis, which makes it an O, okay? Ala kota, ala kota. So, yeah, that sometimes when things get a little bit blurry, I start missing stuff. But here, ala kota, in which the ancient or the old, ancient, yeah, it is quite old in English literature. Word here would be glean, okay? And I will glean. Now, in our passage for this overall and throughout chapter 2, the harvest words that we have there, the kochrim and so forth, are based on the kof. And this one is based on the kof. Kof is the string with a knot on the top. So you're gathering stuff and you're knotting it up and you're harvesting, okay? And you're gathering. So there'll be harvesting. Okay, both the harvesting word and the gathering word are both will include the kof, and so use the kof to kind of remind yourself, oh, we're into a harvesting style word here. So let me gather, let me glean. Yeah, so it's again, let me walk, let me glean. Ba shibulim, among the shibulim, these are the heads of grain, and in translating, all you can do really is say, okay, the ear. Now, the King James said ears of corn. That's I think back in the day that was probably okay. It wasn't corn, it was barley, as we can see from our story, and so it was a grain. Okay, the ears of, if you want to say anything, say ears of barley or ears, but basically ears of grain. Now, something very interesting comes up when you study the word context of shibulim, okay? Yeah, shibulim. There's not a shibulim, okay? Shibulim, among the heads of grain, among the grain actually, the grains, it's plural, among the grains. It's interesting in that in Genesis, shibulim are the heads of grain that you have the heads of grain that have lots of grain on them. They're fat, and then another crop comes forward and they're very thin, and the thin ones eat the fat ones. Okay, so we all know from the story of Joseph that this was the fat years being eaten by the lean years. So the fat grain is eaten by the lean grain. So this is sort of a evidence of the blessing of God, whether, And so the Shibboleth here apparently were worth harvesting. In other words, they were fat. This was a good year then. Okay, Shibboleth, you had a good harvest here. Best Shibboleth. Now, it's also used. In other words, it's a measure as to the blessings of God in a good harvest. Now, it's also used in Shibboleth, and gets us back to one of the judges' stories of Jephthah and the people from Ephraim being upset with what he'd done in the Transjordan, and so they go over and they try to battle him, and then they lose, and then they try to head back, and the Gibeah, the people from Gibeah, control the fords, and so anybody who's trying to flee across the river there, they ask them, say the word Shibboleth, okay, Shibboleth, okay, Shibboleth, and they can't, because back in Ephraim, the way they pronounce it is Shibboleth. They pronounce it a Samic rather than a Sheen. Okay? There's a difference there. There's the same word, different pronunciation. So this word then is also used to detect the pronunciation of whoever is speaking. And in a sense, what Ruth is saying here, going among the Shibboleth, might have to speak to somebody, and when they hear me speak, they're going to notice a difference right away. So it's a test of your language abilities. Archaeologically speaking, with the discovery of the Moabite stones and so forth, it's quite evident that Moabite and Hebrew or Canaanite were very similar enough to be able to understand each other. When you write it down on a tablet, you can read it. A Hebrew reader is able to read Moabite. So there's enough similarity in the language so they could speak to each other. In other words, Ruth probably did have to make some adaptations for pronunciation and certain vocabulary words, but basically she was speaking the similar language to what they spoke in Bethlehem. So, but there would definitely be some difference in the pronunciation. So, I'd like to go over among the Shibboleth, where in a sense may at some point we'll have to use her language abilities, Shibboleth. Now there's a third one here too. Now I'm not saying that all of these are going to be applying, but they all stand in the background. And Shibboleth over in the book of Zechariah is the tubes that provide the oil to the lamps. There's a vision of the menorah in Zechariah that is very detailed with how the lamps are fed with oil. It looks almost like a tree of life with all the things coming together. I remember seeing murals of this, and wow, it's kind of interesting. So yeah, it's something that brings life, brings vigor to what's to the menorah. So yeah, Shibboleth again, only used once that way. So Shibboleth, grains, heads of grain, but just think in English, flowing waves of grain. In other words, waves of grain or grain does carry a lot of cultural significance in any culture, be it in Western culture, be it ancient cultures. The waves of grain are, and when you see them, the wind blowing through them, blessings of the Lord on that place. So, Shibboleth. Ahar, behind. Asher, and this is a relative pronoun here, behind whoever or someone. Asher, behind someone, the one. Em Sachen. Em Sachen is yeah. I don't like using an aleph for closing a syllable, but it almost looks like a closed syllable. It's an open syllable. Okay. Em Sachen, okay, in which I find favor. Okay. With whoever I find favor. So this is now the third verb out. We have elakacha. We have alakota, and now we have ematzachen. Okay, and I find favor. Ematzachen. Be'enav, in his eyes. Okay, I find favor in his eyes. Now, very interesting that um, in the material that we're reading here, if you look at this uh, suffix pronoun right here, and you go, what's the antecedent? Where's that? What's the reference to this suffix pronoun? You're going to have to go, I'll find favor in his eyes, whoever happens to own this field out here. There's a field. Yeah, this hashadeh. And if you're looking at, the text before you, the reference here, of course, would be Boaz. But it's kind of interesting that he's already being mentioned in the suffix pronoun even before they meet. So, something's happening here. Something's getting defined even beforehand. Okay, I will find favor in his eyes. Okay, and in the story, we're looking for this person. Then, within the story, we'll meet up with them again in 2 or 3 verses. There's a Muna right here, which means that's the logical division of our verse. And at that point, we continue on to a different speaker, a different answer, different person doing the dialogue. And that would be Naomi here. Okay, Naomi. Vatomer, and this time around, accenting is beautiful. Milel. This one's Milra accenting over here. They got Mil El accenting, the position of the accent. Vatomer, Lach to her. That's the reference of this Lach would be Ruth. Lachi, go, walk. Same verb as we have here, lech. Okay, lach. In both cases, the hay has gone through a pheresis of the root, but here you have elachka, and here you have lech. To her, lachi. This is preposition with a pronoun. This one's preposition. No, this one's the root. Okay? Lamed kaf, go, walk. Okay? Biti, my daughter. We're going to hear this one also on the lips of Boaz, but here, this is the relationship that Naomi has with Ruth. The reference to Kala, the narrator will use it, but Naomi doesn't use it. Naomi uses Biti. Naomi uses hey, my daughter. She already has, in a sense, adopted Naomi, part of the family. Okay, a sign of caring. And now the other question is, why is it that Naomi didn't go along with her out to they've been walking all the way from Moab, obviously has some capacity for walking and so forth, but Ruth, she's going off on her own, seeking the gleaning, or seeking the gathering. Incidentally, this was a right that was given to poor people in Israel. The Torah states very clearly that you're not going to harvest all the way to the edge of your property, that you should leave, you should pick up everything cleanly off your field, because whoever has a field that has given a bounty of harvest, some of it should be left for the poor and the needy, and they can gather that, they can find that. So that was a right given by the Torah, and here Ruth is availing herself of that right that the law had given to her to pick up this food off the ground. So, yeah, it's a beautiful passage here. It tells us that Ruth could look at, instead of sitting at home and lamenting and crying about her bad situation, she could look out and say, hey, this is what I got to do with my life. I have to define my life in this way, and I'll go out there and I'll I'll be doing the work that I can do, that I have the ability to do it, want to do it, and it's a great blessing to be able to find some grain that I'll be able to share with my mother-in-law. So it tells us that in life you should keep your eyes open when there are opportunities of service. Move forward to them and carry them out, and the Lord in the end will also bless. So God bless and God strengthen you at this time, and give you vision for what you must do with your life. So God bless, and until the next time.